Hello, Pirate Dave here. Time for another Phantom Daily story. This time it's Phantom Daily story number 9, The Slave Traders, coming to us from January 30th, 1939. To quickly recap the previous story, Fishers of Pearls, Diana headed out to Morristown to sort of get away from it all. Her mother wrote a Dear John letter to the Phantom, telling him that Diana no longer loved him, and so she thinks that she has possibly lost the Phantom forever, only to find out the Phantom is nearby Morristown, but due to a series of misunderstandings, she accidentally leads a magnet by the name of Roark to the Phantom, who attempts to kill him. By the end of the story, the Phantom brings Roark to justice, but Diana, fearing that the Phantom no longer loves her and is upset with her, flees Morristown and heads out on a boat to her next adventure, presumably. And that's where we pick up with the slave traders. So let's go ahead and get right into it. And as we saw in previous stories, we get a quick 4-panel recap of the Phantom's origins before jumping into Diana aboard her ship, where she meets a man by the name of Lieutenant Byron. And Lieutenant Byron is putting the moves on Diana immediately. She doesn't come out and say it, but it does seem that Diana is kind of exhausted and, a little bit a little bit turned off by Byron's attempts, but she's playing along with him. And, the subtext there is that she's just sort of getting her mind off of what's happening. Meanwhile, a man has been running off the shore, being chased by somebody, and the crew picks him up and he says, oh, he was being chased by slavers. Slavers in this day and age? This is 1939. It's not slavery anymore. Meanwhile, a hurricane has struck the ship, and unfortunately, it has led to a disastrous consequence, sending everybody overboard. And there's Byron. Diana, Diana. We actually skip ahead, though. It's not really mentioned in the panels there. Byron shows up in Morristown. He's all ragged, he's soaking wet, and he says he's got to find the Phantom. So there's a little bit of a time jump, and we see Byron being led through he's on his last legs. He's dead tired, but he's being led through the jungle just to find the Phantom. Sure enough, he does, sitting there on the skull throne. And that's when he collapses. But he came all this way to give the Phantom Diana's last words. What happened? And that's when we get Byron's story. Apparently, he did recover Diana in the ocean. They got ashore, and that's when they were attacked by slavers. Slavers. No, in 1939. Oh, the horror. Apparently, Byron and Diana were successful in escaping from the slavers at first. And interestingly, and you can understand, right? Byron decides to go on his own. He decides to go ahead of Diana because he felt like he could do more good by getting away, but instead of trying to, make sure she caught up with him. And that's very interesting, right? It's not very chivalrous, but it is smart, and it probably, it probably was the only way to get back to the Phantom, who presumably will help out Diana. So very interesting character choices here sometimes that Lee Falk does. Sure enough, Phantom, of course, agrees to rush off to Diana's rescue, but how are they going to get there? And I think this is the first time that we see this. The Phantom's treasure. I never counted it. It has been the bank of the Phantom for centuries, only used in emergencies. We don't get a whole lot of insight into it, but I just mentioned because the Phantom's treasure is going to be a real big point for the character in terms of his resources and how he gets around moving forward. So the Phantom and Byron head back to where Diana was last seen. Phantom goes off on his own into the desert under disguise on top of a camel. He actually meets some nomads while he's out there, but these guys take advantage of who they think is just a rich traveler, and the Phantom is cornered. What is he gonna do? The Phantom actually pleads, "May I have some water? Look at the yellow dog tremble." And they actually give him the water. This is really creative. That's why I mention it. As he's drinking the water, he cuts the bottom of it with a knife, and that's how he extinguishes the fire. And of course, they're in the middle of the desert, so absolutely pitch black. He marks the would-be robbers for their evil doing, and he is off. Meanwhile, we see Diana. She's actually safe. She's caught by this slaver and tries to put the moves on her, but wham. Oh man, Diana, she's like he said, she's a wildcat, and I just love how she'll just belt a dude. This is Ali, the leader of the slave traders. We don't have to wait long before the Phantom catches up with these slave traders. He sets a little distraction on the rim of a desert dune to draw the slavers away, and that's when he reunites with Diana. They have their romantic reunion. They're kissing. I feel like shouting or singing or crying or something. That's of course very touching, but meanwhile there are slavers outside. So exactly what they're planning to do is curious. And of course, when the Phantom does try to sneak out of the tent, he's already been discovered and dogpile on top of the Phantom. And they already know exactly who he is. The Phantom. Your fame has spread. I just love how all these evildoers have heard the myth of this guy, and now they're seeing him for the first time. And sure enough, Ollie's heard that he cannot die, so he's gonna test that theory, and he's gonna bury the Phantom in an anthill. That's I think I've seen that in some other like desert-based movies. I remember the Scorpion King, right? There was an ant scene in that one where they're buried up to their necks, and sure enough, the same thing happens to the Phantom here. He's buried up to his neck to be slowly devoured by ants as Diana's taken away. But the Phantom has resources. He has his trusty sidekick Devil. Dig, Devil, dig, dig. Devil cannot exactly understand English, so he's just licking the Phantom, thinking he's. But sure enough, Devil eventually does dig and helps the Phantom get out of this predicament. However, I mean, all he's done is dig him out of an anthill. Phantom's arm's still tied behind his back. He's into the desert, and he collapses, and there's jackals. Jackals are afoot. Thankfully, of course, the Phantom has his trusty Devil to fight back. I just love how useful Devil has been just in this short amount of time. Really, really a great animal companion. The jackals are actually led by this man, this old hermit, who finds the Phantom. Is this guy good? Is he bad? Phantom's at his mercy. Nah, he seems like a good guy. Apparently, these jackals are his pets. He's using them like snow dogs. I wonder if there's actually I wonder if there's actually a market for some sort of canines that pull sleds across the desert. I can't imagine that there is, but but who knows? Maybe. Here's an interesting one, an interesting panel. The Sand Hermit helps bring the Phantom back to health, and he actually sees the Phantom without his mask on. This is not something that will really ever happen again outside of Diana Palmer and maybe his children later. This is a big no-no, and of course he's expressing as much that nobody should see him without his mask on. But just an interesting thing, and the first time that we see that he in fact has a hair. He's got short, well-cut hair, well-groomed for living in the jungle, to be honest. We learn a little bit about this hermit, and he discovers the Phantom is here to rescue a woman. A woman! It's always a woman! And we learn the hermit's story. Apparently he loved this girl, and she loved me too, but she was married another man because he was rich and I wasn't. He went and lived out in the desert, and he saw her later, and she was ugly, and she had kids, and he's like, yeah, I mean, let's not dwell on this too long. That probably touches on a lot of modern conventions about about society. Meanwhile, Ali has brought Diana to Lord Solomon, apparently a great client for Ali that buys up a lot of his slaves. And Ali's like, make yourself beautiful so I can get the most out of Solomon. And Diana's like, oh, I'll make myself beautiful. She just covers herself in dirt and grime. And Solomon's like, oh, she's disgusting. Dirt on her face. You. Like, you can't see the outrageously beautiful woman beneath that. And of course, Ali calls her out on it, and he ends up actually forcing her to get cleaned up and brought back before Lord Solomon. And she's of course beautiful now, so it's all but certain that she will be bought by Lord Solomon. A European woman? No, an American. An American? Fool! Take her away before I have you lashed to death. Apparently buying an American slave is just going to bring too much heat onto Lord Solomon, and he's too clever for that. So this big payday that Ali thought he was going to get out of Diana Palmer, that he already promised all of his fellow slavers was going to happen, now he's completely out of money. If Solomon's not buying this slave, well, then nobody's going to buy this slave. And the slavers as much, hey, you better pay us, bro. I don't care if he bought the Diana or not. Meanwhile, the Phantom's back to full health. He bids the sand hermit goodbye and sets back off to find Diana, track down Ali's caravan. And he actually ends up tracking down Lord, you see the spelling is a little bit different here, Lord Suleiman. I don't know when he discovers about Solomon. I really can't pinpoint the panel that he's aware. I would imagine it would be information that he may have gotten from the Sand Hermit. But to be honest, it may just be a little bit of an inconsistency. The Phantom does in fact catch up with Suleiman, but Suleiman has told him, "Oh no, I don't, I don't have her. I don't have her. Here, look at my harem. Look at my slaves. I don't have the woman you're looking for amongst these." The Phantom, of course, decides to go ahead and free all those slaves, and he's like, you know where Diana is, and sure enough, Suleiman admits that he turned Diana away from Ali the slaver. Meanwhile, Ali is frustrated. He's had it up here with Diana, and so he's decided he's gonna let Diana go into the desert by herself with no supplies. Obviously you're not gonna have your main antagonists kill a helpless woman, especially in a 1939 comic strip, but man, is that not much better. I mean, it really, arguably, it's worse, right? Sending her out into the desert to die alone, like, absolutely terrible. As Diana is wandering the desert, she actually sees a rider off in the distance. But she decides it's not smart to catch his attention, because who knows who that rider is? It's not like that rider is somebody that's going to be kind to her after all she's experienced. I love the missed connections that Lee Falk does. I imagine some people could be frustrated by them, but I mean, I think he reasons them well enough, gives us the insight for the character's perspective. That's like, okay, yeah, of course she's not gonna. She doesn't know that that's the Phantom. She has no idea, and she wouldn't think in a million years it was, right. She's as far as she knows, the Phantom's dead, and again, she doesn't believe that he's immortal. In fact, she knows he isn't, right. You get this great panel looking over the caravan that the Phantom has caught up with, and the Phantom takes out the caravan guards. Oh no, skull on their cheeks. No, you're dead. You're dead. Again, the Phantom just, every time he gets an opportunity to reinforce that mythos and remind us that even though he doesn't have powers, he convinces these people in these stories that he does have Phantom, that he does have powers. And look at that panel, the ghost who walks, the ghost who walks. and the Ali's tent is surrounded by his men. And knowing that the Phantom's in there, they have no love for Ali. They just boom, boom, boom. They just blast. They just go blasting into the tent. It's insane. How did Phantom and Ali survive that onslaught? Well, they burrowed into the sand. Very smart. I really, when I was reading this, I did not remember how he avoided all that gunfire, and that's really clever. And of course, so he walks out of the tent unharmed after they just shot a million bullets into it, and they are convinced that this guy is supernatural too, just hammering home that mythos. Meanwhile, Byron has caught up with the desert patrol, and so he enlists their help to go out and find the Phantom and Diana. Byron finally making himself useful after coming back to the desert. The Phantom decides to gang press Ali and his men into searching for Diana. And he's, of course, none too happy after he finds out that Ali left her in the desert to wander and die. But of course, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Meanwhile, Diana is just like the Phantom. You can only wander the desert for so long before she collapses and she cries herself to sleep. Man, I mean, you might think it's silly, but sometimes, sometimes it just hits the feelings. As she's sleeping, jackals. Oh no, jackals again. Oh, that horrible sound. They're following me. I can't run much further. And who do we see again? The sand hermit. I just love that we get this recurrence. Yeah, you would have assumed that maybe he was just a side character and helped the Phantom out of his stick. We actually get the sand hermit again. But a woman, remember his story, he doesn't like women. A woman broke his heart, but he's not a monster. He takes Diana back to his hut and nurses her back to health. He's a good guy, even though he's, a misogynist. Diana, feeling a little bit better, she actually gets up to clean. How? That is the product of 1939 storytelling, of course. Hermit's annoyed. What are you doing up here? I was weak as a cat. This place was so dirty. He's actually a little bit pleased that his hovel is just a little bit cleaner. But I mean, it's Diana Palmer. Like, come on, Lee Falk, you made her get up and clean. Like, it's funny. It is funny, but I don't know. It's just a little bit silly. Meanwhile, the Phantom has split up the slaver forces to help find Diana quicker. They set off on their search, and they're approaching the Sand Hermit's hut. The slavers are going to find Diana. But of course, Diana sees them she recognizes them as slavers. She doesn't know that the Phantom's taken over their caravan, and so she tells the Sand Hermit, don't let him find me. Again, these misconnections, they can be frustrating, but I think it's just explained so well why she would not want to be caught by them. She doesn't know. And sure enough, the Sand Hermit hides Diana successfully, and all is well. And meanwhile, Lieutenant Byron, along with the Desert Patrol, has also come upon the Desert Hermit's tent. But Lieutenant Byron is not as easily fooled as slavers. He pushes the Sand Hermit aside, and that's when he sees Diana. Byron. Oh, he's been so good to me, Byron. And it's such a touching moment. Byron has found Diana. Byron has saved Diana. That's the optics of here. Despite the fact that the Phantom's been rushing all over the desert and knocking out slavers and gang pressing them into helping with his search, as far as she's aware, Lieutenant Byron is her rescuer. And meanwhile, Lieutenant Byron still has to find the Phantom, and sure enough, he does eventually catch up. This is actually the Desert Patrol that catches up with the Phantom, lets him know that Lieutenant Byron told them about the Phantom and that they found Diana Palmer. The Phantom's like, what? They found her? Oh, okay, take care of Ali real quick. Bam! Just quickly marks him, and the Phantom's rushing off to Diana, glad to hear that she's alive. Meanwhile, Diana's getting on a plane back to civilization. And look at this, Byron, I saw him left behind to die. She still thinks that she saw the Phantom die. She saw the Phantom's death, eaten by ants. And Byron doesn't know any better. He thinks that the Phantom's been eaten by ants. The plane takes off, and the Phantom's just 10 minutes late, and they see the plane taking off into the sunset. But it's fine, right? Because Diana's safe, and all he has to do is catch up with wherever she lands, and so he's gonna just send a message and let him know that she's still okay. But meanwhile, she's Diana's traumatized. She's thinking about how she saw the Phantom die, and she just passes out. She's been through quite a lot, Doctor. Exposure, lack of food, and other hardships. She needs a long rest. Meanwhile, the Phantom has sent this telegram. Diana, I'm coming to you at once. Our desert friends tried hard to finish me, but didn't quite make the grade. And that's when Byron intercepts the telegram, and oh wow, the Phantom's alive. This is when Byron's finding it out too. And of course, he's taking the telegram to Diana, but the doctor, yes, that's why I was afraid of it. I don't think we can show her this telegram. She's suffered extreme shock. The doctor advises her not to find out that the Phantom's alive. It'll be too much for Diana. Too much for her poor weak heart. And the Phantom eventually capsizes up to the hospital that Diana's staying at, meets up with Byron, and that's when Byron gives him the bad news. She doesn't know you're coming. Why not? Didn't she get my wire? No, we didn't show her. And Byron's like, stand aside. Can't see her. I'm going to see her. You're not going to stop me. But sure enough, the doctor is there. Explains that Diana's been through too much, and she has to recover. She has to take it easy. And until then, she can't know that he's alive. Sure enough, the Phantom does what's best for Diana. Goodbye, darling. I'll come back someday. Oh, I saw him. Did she see him? Did she feel him? What happened? Did she know? But she feels like he's alive. She feels like he's alive, but they don't tell her. They don't tell her the Phantom's alive. Sorry, that was a little bit melodramatic. I apologize for that. I apologize for whispering into your ear. But I just love how this romance has been constructed by Lee Falk. You have all these misconnections. The latest development having been the Phantom knowing that Diana still loves him, but she thinking that he doesn't love her, and she's rushing off to her rescue, and they find each other once again, and they know that they love each other before she watches him die, at least from her periphery, right? And again, it's really easy to make a story like this and have it come off as just frustrating, gear grinding, like just get them together, but I remember when I first read this, and I still feel the same way that I'm reading it now. It's so superbly constructed. It makes the relationship so well deserved, right? Like, and that's not to discount other comic books, especially superhero relationships, but on the whole, I just feel like a lot of those relationships are taken for granted, a given. When we meet the hero's love interests, it's like, oh, they're gonna fall in love. And I mean, it feels like every problem and every conflict is just something to sell the story that month, right? But in this, the way that it was made when I was first reading it, even knowing that eventually Diana Palmer and the Phantom are going to get together, it's just so rife with understandable misunderstandings, if that's not too much of a contradiction. Hopefully you enjoyed The Slave Traders. I think it's a really interesting story. Lee Falk and especially Ray Moore depart a little bit on the aesthetic because a lot of it takes place at night, so we get a lot of pure black backgrounds, and that's also like one of the reasons why it's this really great, you know, variant of a story type in the first 10 stories or so for the Phantom. Next week is going to be kind of a disconnected story from the larger Diana Palmer and Phantom storyline. It's going to be the mysterious girl, where the Phantom helps a girl who has amnesia. Not exactly my favorite story, but very interesting because I'll have an older issue of Frew Comics that I'll be reviewing the story through. Thank you once again. I'm Pirate Dave, and I hope you had a great time. See you next time.